Game time, baby. Woo!
What's going on, guys? Bingo here. I'm with the Dual Factory for this week's episode of X2 Drop, our Yu-Gi-Oh podcast we do, talking about whatever we feel like. And this week, before we start, I just want to say thank you guys for all the positive comments, and it's good to see that you guys are excited for us to be back. So we'll keep doing this. And like I said, as always, I usually say at the end, if you enjoy this, let us know. If there's a topic you guys want us to do, or something that interests you that you want a little more perspective on from some other people, let us know. But this week's topic is kind of an interesting one. Took us a little bit to come up with one that we actually want to sit down and talk about, but it was focused around the ban list, but obviously I didn't want to talk about just like, what we want to happen. It's more of 10 decks that the Yu-Gi-Oh community thought were dead after a ban list. You know, a knee-jerk reaction, the YouTube clickbait, like, oh, this deck is dead, the format's over, like stuff like that. So we're going to go through basically a Yu-Gi-Oh timeline, newest to oldest, talking about the decks of the past. I think we went back 6 years or so, where multiple times the Yu-Gi-Oh community just, hey, this deck's dead, it's unplayable, and it was basically just proved wrong. So Joe, first off, what do you think about the topic, and why do you think it's important, like, to look at this?
I think this topic is like super interesting because it basically stemmed off the idea of like because we were brainstorming ideas earlier. One of the ones I brought up is like cards that I thought would like flopped or like cards came off the list, and then we just kind of branched off into like we were talking about decks, and then it came up to head to this one, and I think it's super interesting to look at it because it kind of gives us like a history of what Konami has like done in the past, like per se, like for like other decks, and times that you can see like we all thought like, hey, like this is going to change drastically, but like it just didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like the decks just adapted, or they just kept getting played despite all the hits until they finally took away like all the main engine pieces of the cards and stuff like that. So it's cool to like talk about something like this because it still gives you like a general idea of what Konami might do in the future whenever they make more lists.
Yeah, I liked looking at this from the player's perspective because just how dedicated the player base is, or how adaptive, I guess is a better word, where you know, for let's say 2 or 3 months the community gets comfortable, and you really see deck lists start to solidify, and anything outside of that is deemed like spice, like they're going off the wall, and then the ban list forces a shakeup, and the main engine piece or the main combo that they were doing becomes no longer viable, but the deck is still playable. But a lot of the player base that aren't the deck building wizards, there's some great ones out there, don't really know how else the deck can function, right? And it's for the community to decide over the next couple of weeks how that's going to play out. So the first one on the list, like I said, we're going newest to oldest. So really the newest one that kind of had something like this was Emancipator. And I did take a lot of this time off, but I know they took the deck was just absolutely nuts, right? It was all gas all the time. And then it took the hits of Black Dragon and I guess an indirect hit of O-Lion being banned. And it's, Joe, I'll let you take this one, but you said it's basically just now coming around to where it has figured out how it wants to play after those hits.
Oh yeah, so before the ban of Black Dragon Line, we'll start from there. A lot of the community made the consensus that it was by far the best combo deck. You had all the miners that basically were free bodies and stuff like that. You still had O-Lion, and some people were still playing with Jet Synchron, but that's neither here nor there. But the deck was still doing its combos, and it was like super unfair because you would have the Block Dragon, and then it just like, let's see, the best way to explain this one would be like it. Even if you like did bad play, you were rewarded because Block Dragon just bailed you out because it just added 3 free rock monsters, and you just got to keep going. and it was really, really hard for other decks to keep up with that like recurability that the card itself just brought to the table. And then you could like play other cards like Masquerena, like and then link off with Block Dragon during your opponent's turn and get 3 free searches. So you essentially get 6 free searches in a 1-turn swap, which was insane. And then O-Lion giving you access to a bunch of synchro plays that the deck didn't have access to. Like the deck, it's funny. The term they were coming with is it was the best tier 1 deck to not have any single actual real top, because obviously we can't do anything because of COVID. But now, post Block Dragon and stuff like that, and I've noticed it a lot lately, especially on the online formats. I haven't seen anyone playing in remote duels yet, but people are starting to play the Adamantipator deck again because people are realizing that you still have all the tools it had previously. You still have all the miners. You still have the Halka Fibrex engine, just adapted with new cards. It got new tools to play with, like, let's see, was it Miracle Rupture? That card was experimented with a little bit before Block Dragon got banned, but because we had Block Dragon, no one really played it. It's one of the best decks to play the Dragoon engine right now, because a lot of the when you're excavating cards, you excavate the Red Eyes Fusion package, and then you just put everything back at the bottom. It can also put up cards like Herald of Arclight before going into its 5th summon, so that way you can, like, if you draw into it, it's one of the best decks to make so many monsters on the board to begin with. You can just start putting your Red Eyes package back at the bottom of the deck and still be able to resolve it. So the people are finding out that there's still like a very solid way to play the deck right now, and it's becoming more and more popular. But as you were saying earlier, when we were talking about it, the deck does have a tendency that if it gets at a certain choke point, it can run out of gas because you don't have Block Dragon anymore. Like, you're not summoning it for free. You're not getting free resources. You're not getting bailed out for being punished on certain choke points and stuff like that. So the deck's still like a solid deck. I don't know if it's like a tier 1 deck. I think it's more like a tier 1.5. But like, it's still a very powerful deck, and we might see something happen to it again on the next list, but we don't know.
Yeah, and this one is kind of like our a stretch because it is still like current, but we had to, the past year Yu-Gi-Oh has been just so foggy basically, but you can't deny the pre-ban list power of Adamantipator, and because of that it's taking a little while longer for the player base to adapt, because one, nobody cared that their physical deck got hit, right? Because a lot of the time people don't want to let their deck die, so they already put the money into it. Like, if somebody was going to events during this format, like, and they bought researchers for $80, like, they would have put a little more time into solving the problem that banlist created, but it's taken a little bit more time right now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, and then the next one on the list is jumping before COVID, Spiral, right? That was like the resurgence of Spiral. So we basically grouped all of Spiral's history into this one block, so we're not going to talk about it down the road. But Spiral has seen some insane bounce back. So obviously, was it 20? That was 2018, right?
Yeah, it was either the tail end of 2017 or the beginning of 2018 is when Spiral got really popular.
Yeah, so the deck was just ludicrous. People were like afraid of it, like Trigate lock, extra link, shenanigans. Like, this was like kind of early link era, and my buddy's like, Spiral doesn't care about max C, they'll just deck you out. And I'm like, how is that even possible, right? So we had Firewall, we had everything, and then I think by the time they took their first hit, we still obviously had Firewall, right?
Yeah, so it's actually now I think about the first hit, Spiral was probably the only like super dedicated link deck we had that actually had because the first renditions of it played 2 Firewall in the extract. Now that
yeah. And then the first like actual hits to Spiral, we took Quick Fix and drones to 1. So you could no longer machine dupe. The stacking your deck like had to be your dedicated search most of the time to get access to the drones, unless you had like 1-for-1 or like it scared a lot of people because like
you took a it took a big consistency hit because the drones is like one of your big power plays, and obviously machine do quick fix was like that was just like automatic game, right?
Yeah,
Like just you got so many searches in one turn. Note this list also put firewall to one, so you weren't doing like multiple firewall fields anymore.
Yeah, so you no longer had the firewall for your recovery and extending, and plus ending on a bounce, plus a tri-gate, negate, and sleeper and extra lane. It was crazy. So a lot of people did consider dropping the deck. Now I know the power level was still there, but then we took Spiral Resort and Ancient Fairy Dragon got banned. So drone Resort, Quick Fix, and Drone were all at one. And I think there were some dedicated Spiral players for a little bit, and then I feel like at that power level, it just got power crept for just better decks, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. It 100% got pushed to a rogue position because like the deck could still do scare things, but it was super fragile. You only had your best cards were all at one. You couldn't do the Destrudo engine anymore because Ancient Fairy was just gone. You know, like
Yeah, the spiral deck was like 21 one-ofs.
It was kind of interesting though too because if you wanted, it was like a good deck to pick. Like after all the hits, it was a good deck to pick up because it taught you how to manage resources because all your cards were one ofs. So that was kind of cool. But like you're saying, it wasn't the phenom that it was like in previous formats.
Yeah, so about a year and a half of obscurity on the rogue tier. We got Magician Souls, which just like made the deck explode. Like it was just insane. And then Master Plan finally got banned, right? So I honestly thought like it was going to get preemptively addressed, but it just didn't happen.
No, Konami let us play it, and
Yeah.
like it was a hell of a time to play it too. Because like when you had Souls and still had Master Plan, like it gave you a reason to play cards like where that because now you had a reason to search level ones, and like we didn't think it was going to be like that insane, but like being able to get the dead spells and trap cards out of your hand by drawing them in your combos and stuff like that card just made the deck insane again.
Yeah, you get advantage for getting the bricks out of your hands, right? Because you're tossing the traps into the grave, drawing two, and then using them to reborn freaking Master Plan and get two more searches. Like it just became a busted tier again, and then they finally axed it, right? So the point where the community thought that deck was dead, in my opinion, is Quick Fix and Drones to one, and then it adapted from there.
It just got insane.
Going back a little bit to early mid 2019, I guess is when the deck finally died, but Orcust. So this Orcust took a lot of indirect hits throughout its lifetime. Right, so you had Summon Sork, Azathoth, Rank Up, Combo, Bardiche, like all those were banned over the course of a couple months, and then it adapted to the what is it called? Like the Sky Striker build, and then Engage got banned and Instant Fusion got put to one, and the deck was still good. Like you had a Gizmek Orochi, a couple other pretty good extenders, and it just became a more controlled style. You still had Harp, you still had Skeleton, Dingirsu, like Galatea is a freaking pain in the ass. Deck was just good.
Galatea just lets you play every single game. The fun when I look at it, as you look at like the timeline, they took stuff away from it. The funny thing about the Orcust deck, if you think about it, all they did was take the unfair plays away from it, right? Like they took away the Azathoth play, they took away they took away Bardiche putting up multiple negates, or they took away like Engage, like drawing multiple cards and still being able to search ability cards.
Took away the window play, right? Like
like all they did was take away its unfair cards. The rest of the deck itself, like the core principle of it, it did the same exact thing, which was basically just recycle the Orcust cards and resolve Galatea Dengirsu every single turn. Like the core strategy never got touched.
Yeah,
until
Konami just wanted Orcust players to play Orcust cards. Like that's about it.
Literally.
But
it was.
I remember when Bardiche got banned, a lot of people thought Orcust was just going to fall into obscurity, not because the cards themselves were hit, but because if you look back like pre-Orcus, because that was, or pre-Bardiche, because that was before we got Ding, it was just like this cool like rogue deck that like at Deception just beat the shit out of somebody with.
Literally.
And yeah.
The attack that deck, if you will.
So when Bardiche got hit, a ton of people were just talking about how Orcus is just not going to be good anymore. And that obviously was not the case because it was a powerhouse deck for a long time after that.
Oh yeah, the deck was just like, it's like you said, all the key parts of the deck that made it good were still there. You just took away the unfair parts, and now like, funny thing enough, the deck honestly is still really good. It's a tier 2 deck right now because again we don't have Heart, but I mean like, it's still really good to play.
Yeah, Harp's just so important to get those shuffled back engine pieces back out of your deck easily, like stuff like that.
Being able to e-tele a monster every single turn is the key part there.
Yeah. Oh, and God forbid you had like you resolved it on your turn and then got it back in grave, and then you could just do it on your opponent's turn because you have Babble up, and you're like, oh, you're gonna destroy my Babble. All right, I'm gonna chain, and yeah, I just get a bunch of free stuff.
Literally.
All right, so Salamangreat. This was one because this deck was never overbearing, right? It was never. Some people would tell you it's the best deck in the room, but it was never glaringly obvious, right? It always had to fight to win a tournament, which I know sounds pretty weird. Like, yeah, it's a tournament, but sometimes you take a deck like Goki and you're like, yeah, there's like a 75% chance Goki's going to win the event.
The key thing with Salamangreat, no matter what hit it's like it got to play every single game. That's what made it like so good. And then you look at all the hits it took and stuff like that, but like it didn't change. Like the deck just kept playing.
Yeah,
like, that's all it did.
So we took debug to 1, which honestly, I remember that list. It was not a big deal. It was a toss. Like, were we playing Bufferlow or were we playing debug as the normal summon? Yeah, that was just like, it was just a slap on the wrist. Like, hey, Salad, we're watching you. So no one was really worried at that point. Then we took Circle and Gazelle down to 1, and this scared a lot of people. Because they're like, okay, we already had the consistency hit from debug, the best, the card you want to see every single turn. Like, we're not going to be able to play Desires. Our Rhoda's down. Like, I don't know if this deck, like, when it draws well, it's going to do the same thing it always does. But what if you don't draw well? And then it just played out like we have other ways to play, right?
It basically, well, the thing with like the Circle and the Gazelle one, it was actually funny, as you said, like you couldn't play cards like Desire, but I remember people starting to play the play that card more.
Yeah, that became a staple.
It like your deck just wasn't good enough without the card, and you needed the extra cards to be able to play. But it was also funny too because at the same time these cards went to 1, we just had Signet Reminding release, right? So that was a consistency boost that the deck kind of needed at that point. But it's weird as well because like Signet Mining was like the best card in your deck, but it's also the worst card in your deck because like it got you to everywhere you needed to be. But like if you ash it, like
if you ash it without a follow up, like discard Spinny when you already have like a normal summon in your hand. If it gets ash, like you're probably fine. But because we did still have Stalio, and there was a couple different builds going around. Like I said, when a deck has to adapt the core strategy, it takes a while to figure it out. So you had like the guys that were playing six traps, and then you had Stalio Turbo with like rank 3 builds. Like it took a little while, and then it just became like, how can I set up a trap, get my engine online, and just play from there? Like it didn't really change at all after the hits.
No, not at all. Like it was still just a solid. Like I remember, like what is it? We went to several events that time, and I remember watching Bless play it all the time, and like he was just like he did the same thing every single turn, and then finally the nail in the coffin there is when Stalio finally got banned, and people still play it. Like it's like the best access code talker deck. If we're being 100% honest, because the deck can just do it every single turn, but like. You see, like a lot of like the glaring flaws of like Salamangreat, like just pulling up now because now you don't have a way to like just summon your Jaguar for free, so you have to play multiple copies of it, and then like the deck's still very consistent. It's just
is it strong enough?
It just got pushed to the side because there's just other decks that are just as consistent as it and just do things better than it can.
Yeah. All right. So that's kind of like the near scope, like the past year and a half. So we're gonna have to pick up the pace on some of these, but if we go over 30 minutes, we go over 30 minutes. So our first and only honorable mention is Thunder Dragon, because we were talking about all these decks that there was like that one focal point where it's like, I don't know if this deck will be good after this ban list. Thunder Dragon didn't really have that until it was unplayable. Because any time they took a small hit or an indirect hit, because they look back at it, they never took a like, I'm hitting Thunder Dragon Fusion or I'm hitting Thunder Dragon Roar, right? It just instantly adapted. You had your Chaos build, you had your Pure build, you had your Brilliant Fusion, which that was insane. I don't ever want to talk about that again.
That was my favorite build by far.
Yeah, and that was like became popular right after I bought my Alti Brilliant Fusions from Doug for like $40 a piece or something like that.
And then it went to one.
So that was Thunder Dragon. So it was like always good, and then it just Colossus got banned, and there was just the diehards, like there was that one dude made like Titan Turbo and made it pretty far in a regional or something, or I don't remember the event, but it wasn't good. So it just went from good to dead, and no one was really concerned about it. And then we have the longevity of Sky Striker. How many hits did this deck take? So the first one I remember was not a scare at all. It was like, thank God. Hornet Drones went to 1, right? That was Trickstar Sky Striker. Thank you for that. I appreciate it, but that needed to happen. Then we had Multi-Roll and Kagari to 1. This is where I remember the community was getting a little bit like afraid, because you had the hard counter of Thunder Dragon in the format, right? So your engages, you needed Kagari to be a Thunder Dragon board.
Right? 100%.
So personally, I was a little bit afraid going after this list, but once I got into testing and the feel for the deck, I wasn't really too concerned about it.
Nah, that deck was fine. It still had 3 engage, even though like Colossus' problem, like, didn't matter. You still had the outs.
Yeah, it's just your likelihood to play the long game, because this is where Hercules base became a staple, because you needed it to recycle your Kagari. We didn't have Avarice. The deck just slightly adapted. I got scared a little bit. And then Widow Anchor went to 1. And we're like, fuck, how do we play with 1 Widow Anchor?
That was probably my favorite list, because like now I'm like, now my sticking.
Yeah, and then
I'm excited.
And then somewhere in there we got, we had 3 mind control. Like the deck just adapted with other spells. Like there was some people playing. There's a brief period of time where I know some people were playing instant fusion, but I think that was more toward that. Yeah. But I honestly, I wasn't going to drop the deck because I didn't want to play anything else in the format, but I didn't know if the deck was going to be able to keep up. And somehow, like, I don't know if it's because people just didn't want to drop it or what, but it was still playable because we had 3 engage. Like that. 100%. Yeah, a card that searches every card in your deck is pretty good, I guess.
It was the best card in Yu-Gi-Oh! And you had 3 of it. The deck was going to be played. 100%.
Yeah. So I thought Sky Striker was going to be deemed irrelevant, like both of those lists. And then we finally banned engage, got Kagari back to 3, and now the deck is fine. It's definitely gotten worse over the past couple months because like just the power level of the decks that have come out since February, March is just like pushed it off to obscurity. But we got the link too. Like it's still fun to play. It's not going to keep up, but the Bandit engage definitely was I don't want to say the nail in the coffin because it did have like a month or two after that where it was still pretty popular, but then new cards came out and just pushed it off.
Food for thought, though. I think the Sky Striker deck will actually get better once the Dino deck finally disappears because it can't play through Lost World. But that's just my thought at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely be able to tell you because that is pretty much the only deck I'm going to play until I can either till I move back to California or till my locals opens back up.
There you go.
All right, and then of course I said we're going to be quick, and I spent 5 minutes talking about Sky Striker.
I figured.
Goki, right? This one can be quick. Goki combo, everybody's favorite. This deck was insane. One of the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, right? So it had a lot of... No Goki cards ever got to hit, right? You don't see Suprex sitting on the ban list.
No. The Goki deck never had anything taken away from it directly. It was everything else.
You had so many cards tied to this thing. You had Goblin, Firewall, Gumblar, Summon Sork, Invoke, Midbreaker Field.
Number 86, Rungon.
Yeah. After the deck was dead, it came back alive and was fucking Rongo Turbo. Like
so you had the original U-Link, then take Goblin away. Then you had you're not going to play Yu-Gi-Oh because you're not going to have a hand. Then they took Firewall and Gumblar away. Oh, no, we still had Gumblar. They just took Firewall away. I got that backwards. And then there was the Rongo deck where they either made Rongo or took your hand away. So then they took those away from us. And then they just, they decided to take Invoker as well because, let's take it for good measure. Because that card's insane. Like, that card's broken.
Yeah.
I miss Invoker.
I do too. It's such a gorgeous secret rare, like the original print.
Yeah, man.
I remember buying that bitch for $70 in Zoo format.
The card's great, but like the Goki deck is just great because like the entire community would have a sigh of relief when like something got taken away from Goki, but then we just immediately get thrown back in the nightmare because like we're not done.
Yeah, Suprex not banned, Goki rematch not banned. We're good.
They're like, bro, I have all my engine cards and you have nothing. Let's go.
But, all right, so jumping back even a little bit further, Pendulum. Oh man, Pendulum had I didn't realize how many hits this thing had. Not all at once, right? So you had Joker. So you had that one weekend where you had Joker, Double Iris, Electrum literally just came out. And I'm over here at the regional playing Pure Invoked, right? Like that was the regional. I took 11th that regional, so I was pretty happy. But anyways, then that Monday we got Electrum and we lost Joker and Double Iris, which I'm fine with, honestly. But no one thought the deck was dead. Like we just got Electrum, so people are gonna play it. And then we lost. We had like the Pen FTK and all that shenanigans. We lost Astrograph and Supreme King, Starving Venom.
Yep.
And I was, outside looking in, I wasn't a Pendulum player. I always like, hey, stop Electrum or you lose. So I was like, okay, maybe this will do something. Joe, what'd you think when you saw Astrograph ban?
When I saw Astrograph banned, I was like, all right, cool. So I honestly thought no one was going to play the Pendulum deck like whatsoever after that because like Astrograph.
Yeah, Astrograph was nuts.
I started thinking like they still have Electromite though, so I would do. It was just whatever.
Yeah.
But then I sat down in the regional, and the first person I played was a Pendulum fucking Electromite like I don't know 3 times against me, and I was just like, nah, this deck's still insane. Yeah. Like it was just crazy.
And it just the Pendulum mechanic and the decks and the engines, there's so many. It takes a little while for like those master wizards to figure out how the fuck they want to play the deck. But you saw Chronograph being a stable summon Time Gazer. You saw Curtain Raiser being played, just Electromite Turbo. How can I make Electromite before either my normal summon or my Pendulum summon? Like that's like worst case scenario, right? And they definitely definitely deserved the Electrum to 1. After that point, I thought the deck was fine. Like, I didn't enjoy playing against Pendulum. It's never fun. But then they finally banned Electromite. Kick and Triff while he's down.
Yeah, more or less. They unbanned him, and then they just put his favorite card to 1. But like, I think the Electromite ban, although it probably was the smart thing to do, I don't think it should have been like banned completely because like, yeah, they had like only 1 Electromite, and it wasn't like overbearing, and the deck could still do cool stuff.
Yeah, like the deck was doing cool stuff, but it wasn't like yeah, it would do the infinite negate combo, or it would do something else. Like it would set up a huge board, but you know, half the room's not playing Pendulum. You know, you got your dedicated players, and like that's pretty much about it. But anyways, we're not here to dwell on that. The next one, jumping back to 2017 to 2018, Zodiac. Oh man,
this was a glorious time in our game.
It was. So it didn't have as many hits as Sky Striker, but it took about that many ban lists to like make the deck garbage. But it was a very more. The end result was a more clear, direct. Like Konami's like, you're gonna stop playing this deck. There's no possible way you could play it anymore.
They did some drastic stuff. Like, what is it? The first one was a slap on the wrist with Rat too. That one was kind of funny.
Yeah, and the people that didn't play Zoo were like, oh yeah, they're finally hitting Zoo. Like, no, anybody who played the deck knows that you can play it with 2 Rat, right? It's just.
I remember a lot of people thought the deck was dead because it only had 2 Rat because you couldn't do any of the cool combos. But then we remembered he had Fusion Sub, so there's that.
Yeah, and then Fusion Sub did creep its ugly head. And then like people were sketch about Pot of Desires again, but then it's like, okay, I'll just get the rats out of the deck first. And Max C went to 1 somewhere in there, so it became Sack City, which I think helped exploit the Fusion Sub combo because
that was such a dirty feeling. You resolve the Fusion Sub combo and play into it, and your opponent Max C's you. Just instant rage. You're ready to kill your opponent every time.
Yeah. Then they banned Norden, Terratop to 1, and we thought we didn't think it was going to be enough, right? Like that wasn't the point. Like no one thought Zoo was dead. They're like, thank God Fusion Sub is dead. That was the thought process.
Like it toned it down. The problem was just nothing else got powered up. Like it was just still Zoo.
Yeah, like and there wasn't. The products being released at the time weren't in favor of getting rid of this deck. It was like, what else am I going to play if I want to play Tier 1? I'm going to play Zoo or I'm going to play something with Zoo. So, and then after that, it was just Konami saying, you're fucking done with this deck. Ban Emerald, Trident, Broad Bull, and put Rat to 1.
I just want to point that Emerald died for Zoo's sins.
Yeah, it took a while to get him back. And
we still only have 1 copy.
Yeah, that's probably for the best, man.
There are some pretty cool combos with multiple Emerald knocks, so we're just going to leave that alone.
Yeah. So jumping back a little bit further to another deck I can't go a podcast without talking about, Necroz. So we'll be quick about this one. It took 3 or 4 ban lists to kill this deck. I wasn't around this time. Was there any point where the community thought the deck was going to be no longer the best deck in the room?
No, every single list that we were sitting here, we actually just all laughed until they actually did like the final list. I remember sitting there talking to several players at that time, and we just also like as a like general consensus, this is still the best deck. No matter what.
So it went through 3 or 4 lists before it got banned. So Brio went to 2 and Preparation of Rights went to 1. And to me, that even not playing during the format, I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. Then they banned Lavalval Chain and Jin and put Shrit to 1, right? So the first 2 just look like getting rid of degenerate bullshit. And the Shrit to 1, like, weren't some people only playing 1? I know a lot of people were playing 2.
1. Yeah, some people were. The general number was 2, but some people were only playing 1 because we still had 3 Rhoda and we still had Lavalval Chain. And like, if you just needed access to it, like you just had it whenever you wanted. So technically, you only had to play 1. But a lot of people played 2 because like stupid cards like Bear, the Ice Bear, Mirror the Ice Barrier and stuff like that were becoming more popular. Well, that was disgusting. But yeah. But no, the Shrit was just like you just had so much access to it, so like you only played the second copy in case something happened to the first one. But like then it went to one, so we didn't have a choice. So we had to play like Sorcerer, and we had to play the dragon one. I can't think of his name, but it's a level 5 guy. You had to play it to recycle it. But yeah, it wasn't like that big of a deal.
Yeah, and then the last one was where Unicorn went to 1, and that's like, I don't know. As someone who messes around with the deck so much, like Unicorn is such an important card for in my opinion, the recovery. But Brio went to 1, Unicorn went to 1, Rhoda went to 1, and Shriek got the axe. So you took away your big power play, power play pendulum summons or ritual summons.
Yeah, at that time, Shrit leaving was actually just a death sentence deck, so we didn't have all the cards we have access to now, especially like when we had like incantations and stuff like that. But like,
yeah, that was how you got your giant ritual summons, right?
Yeah.
But hey, they just neutered the consistency, and then it just could not play, right? So we're 36 minutes in, so that's fine. I got the podcast time paid for anyway. Might as well use it.
There you go.
Joe, I'll let you talk about this one because it is your baby. Dragon Ruler, jumping back to 2013 Nationals.
What a time to be alive. We had all the rulers. There was the spellbook players, but they were their own cults. So we're not going to talk about them. But this deck was insane. So it took up a majority of the Nationals that year. And then after that Nationals, our ban list came out. And this was like one of the first crazy ban lists we ever had in Konami's history. Because all the babies got banned, but then all the power cards got banned too. So like Monster Reborn, Card Destruction, Heavy Storm, all the power traps went to 1. Like all the good, like broken Yu-Gi-Oh cards got banned. And then I thought like the Dragon Roller deck wasn't going to be as good, or wasn't going to be tier 1 because the babies were gone. But then again, the Wizards came out, and then two builds came out that stood out throughout the entire crowd. There was the Ravine Ruler build, which was the most popular build because it was the most consistent. And then Hoban came out with his Dragoonity Ruler build. And the deck was just broke. Like, there was just nothing that could stand up to it. It was just by far the best deck. And then after we played 6, and this was also before Konami did their change in ban list where they changed it every 3 months. So we had like 6 months of just Ravine Rulers. And then they did their change. And then after that list, they took all the rulers down to 1. And then they took away like Dragon's Ravine and stuff like that. But we still had access to cards like Dragon Shrine. And then people were starting to play the Blue Eyes engine in it, so you could play more copies of like Cards of Consonance and then trade-ins stuff like that. And then the Dragons of Legend set came out, and then we got cards like Soul Charge that just instantly bumped the deck back up to being the best deck in the room with only 1 copy of each Dragon Ruler. And then finally, the deck got power crept when Duelist Alliance came out. But as fortune would have it, that same year, the premium gold set that came out, Dark Matter Dragon came out. And we were all excited because people were going to start playing Dragon Ruler. And then 2 days later, they banned every single copy of the ruler, and that was the end of Dragon Rulers.
All right. So that was like 6 years of meta decks and how the community thought they were going to die multiple times, right? So that was a long...
single time.
Really enjoyed talking about this one, guys. It just goes to show that a ban list does not mean a deck's dead. The game's about creativity and enjoyment, right? So if you really enjoy a play style of a deck, try to find a way to make it work. Yeah, it might, maybe it is too far gone. Maybe it's past the prime. Like I remember playing Frog Necros at locals because everybody there sucked and I wanted to enjoy myself.
Wait, that was a thing?
Oh yeah, it was it was like before I moved to Springfield, like winter of 17/18.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but my point is just try to have fun. Like, don't let a 1 hit on the ban list make you drop the deck, unless it's master plan to 0. Because I don't know what you're gonna do.
You're gonna have to figure it out there, bub.
Yeah. Joe, Any closing comments, final thoughts on the episode?
If there's anything to take from this episode, especially like at the local level, boys, Yu-Gi-Oh is not Super Bowl. Quit treating it like it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, banlist comes and like it's not the end of times. Like, bruh, just be a wizard. It's gonna be okay.
God forbid you not go to locals and play like the tier 0 deck. Like have fun.
Just don't be like Doug. All right, just everyone has sauce other than him. Don't be him.
Saying a MMO, you don't have to min max your stats, right? Just fucking take what you got and have fun with it. Like you don't have to be top tier all the time. And that's how some of these decks survive. People really like them. Like, honestly, this is probably going to be a topic for another day, but the reason a deck can survive something like this is the player base puts the time and effort into making it the best deck in the room.
Imagination takes miles, boy.
There's a ton of times where there's other decks that can be played, but the fan base and the following for a deck keeps it going. But that's for another day. All right. So closing comments, Joe? Like anything?
Douglas Rich has no sauce.
Well, there you have it. So, guys, I really do hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun with this one. It turned out a lot more exciting than I first thought. But if you have enjoyed it, please let us know. YouTube.com/BingoHD, YouTube.com/TheDuelFactory. Shoot us a message on there if you don't want to leave a comment. Just let us know a topic that's interesting you. If you don't want to use YouTube, hit us up on Twitter. Same handles, I believe. But with that being said, I'll see you guys back here next week. Same time, same place. Peace out.
Okay, bye.